The Premed Year, session number 328. Hello, and welcome to the Premed Years, where we believe that collaboration, not competition, is key to your success. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Gray, and in this podcast, we share with you stories, encouragement, and information that you need to know to help guide you on your path to becoming a physician. Welcome to the Premed Years. If this is your first time joining me here today, welcome and thank you for taking some time to listen to this podcast. My goal with this podcast when I started it over 6 years ago was to tell the stories of students. It was to share real information with you, to show you that if this is what you want, you can do it. And today's guest is the perfect example of the type of student who I want to succeed on this journey. Somebody who's had an amazing career as a nurse, but wants more. And she struggled in her journey, especially with the MCAT. And we talk all about her struggles and her first application cycle and the jump to her second application cycle and still hearing crickets when it came to interview invites and what she did to advocate for herself so that she could get some interview invites and ultimately a medical school acceptance. Our student today will jump in and say hello to Janet. Janet, welcome to the Premed Years. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Gray.
You are a nurse.
Yes.
What led you down the nursing path to begin with?
So I had a family member that was actually diagnosed with cancer, and I wanted to help take care of them. So I ended up doing like a CNA course and getting started with that, and then I saw the nurses come in and, what they did with their care. It was, higher level and more critical thinking and help the patient more. So I was like, okay, let me, dive into that and see how I can, just help people more. So I ended up doing nursing. And
the helping people more theme seemed to continue. So at what point in your nursing career did you think, I don't know if this is enough for me?
So I had a patient one night who was, he was pretty gravely ill, but he was on the fence to doing better. And on the monitor, it showed a perfect rhythm, which we call normal sinus rhythm. But when I went to his room, he was pulseless, so he had pulseless electrical activity. And
also known as a PEA arrest for those who like that kind of stuff.
PEA arrest, yes. And so we had to, of course, call Code Blue and, help resuscitate him. And when I was, in the code and the role that I played, being a nurse and being the person that I had to tell the story and, why he was here, because the doctors and everybody that came in had no idea. So I had to, get them up to speed and assist them in that. I just saw the role that I had in nursing wasn't, it wasn't enough. I wasn't being able to be that agent of change in the patient because, the doctors and the other staff were able to, create a plan more. I was a part of the plan, but I wasn't, the person really inputting as much as I really desired to.
Now, it's a very common role for a nurse, right? To do a bunch, but maybe not the ultimate decision-making and stuff like that. What do you think it was about you and your personality or your upbringing that determined that it wasn't enough for you, whereas there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other nurses out there going about their day thinking, yeah, this is awesome. This is exactly what I want. So
from a young age, my mom is, she's a DMD. So she has a doctorate in medicine and she specialized in stomatology. So I've worked with her in rural Tanzania. We're from Tanzania originally. So we moved around a couple of places, but mostly in Africa. And so working with her in these populations and just seeing different things where it's like a ward full of, 100 patients and there's not enough room and they're kind of laying on the floor and we're trying to give everybody the care that, they can, going to, being able to have like funerals for people because they're not able to make it or things like that. So I I'd seen a lot of things just in the childhood, and being able to being explained having everything explained to me. Like, this is why this is happening. This is the overall picture. This is the bigger picture. And so when I came to nursing, I was getting a picture, but it wasn't the bird's eye view. It wasn't the overall picture. And that's what I found was kind of the block between, nursing and medicine, is the fact that, you know, you were getting a picture, but it wasn't the full picture. It's, task orientation of like, okay, this is what we have to get done and everything. But I wanted to figure out, what is the overall picture of the patient's life. It's different from living in a third world country to, in the Western world, and what are they doing? What is happening with them? What is impacting their health more than just what we see here? Because we've created these four walls in the hospital. So, they only give us as much as, we're asking them. But there's more that impacts health than just your disease and comorbidities.
So you were potentially a little bit ruined from your early exposure as a kid, seeing the full picture, and then when you're out practicing as a nurse, you weren't getting that full picture. So you knew what you were missing.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything is fragmented. I did home care, and just seeing the patients going from the hospital to the home setting are two different things. It'll be a picture, painting a whole picture. Patient is like, yes, I have help, I have support, I have all these things, and then you go into the home, and they're like, yeah, it's just me. Hardly walk, and I can hardly do that. So
there are a lot of nurses who and PAs and NPs who go on to medical school because they finally realize that, number one, they want to know more and do more, and number two, that they are smart enough. Was that any part of your journey where you maybe quote unquote settled for nursing because you didn't think you were able to scholastically handle the pre-med path and get into medical school?
I mean, I definitely thought that it would be a longer, road for me, and I had to work through school. So I've worked since I was 14 years old. They give you permits, and you can work like 15 hours a week. So as soon as they could give me that, I started working. So for me, it was, very much so like, this has to be practical, like this has to work with me also paying bills, because no matter how much education I have, if I can't, pay my bills, I'm not going to make it in life. So it was very much so like, okay, I probably won't be smart enough to do it because I don't even have the time and the resources to be able to fully immerse myself, and take classes and being able to do every single extracurricular activity that I can, and just making school my job, and that's kind of like the only thing that really matters. And so I felt it was more a rounded thing. Yes, I probably wasn't smart enough because I just couldn't give it the time it deserved.
Okay. When you decided to finally dip your toes into the pre-med world, what was the first thing you did?
The first thing I did was just like sign up for, I just signed up for a chemistry, I think it was a chemistry class, like Chem 101. And that was a horrible idea.
Why?
So it was like a class where you had to take a class before to get in, but with my nursing prereqs, I had taken a class similar to it, but not at that particular age. So they took the credit for the class, but once I got into the class, everything was like, we learned this last semester, and it was terrible because I had no idea what was going on. So it was just another way of, telling me like, you're not ready, this is not for you. I took the first exam, and it was horrible. I got a 25 on it. And
out of 30?
No. Out of 100. I had no idea what was going on. And, it's better if you actually study for something and you're just like, no, I just don't know this. But in the fact that you don't even know what's going on, and everything is moving so rapidly. So I went to the instructor and I was like, okay, clearly I need to take the class before this because, mine did not it didn't teach me everything that I needed to learn. And she was gracious enough to let me switch classes like 4 weeks into school. So I got to do the class before that. And I ended up doing well. I did not feel crazy. I got an A in it, but it just goes to show kind of the place that you put yourself in. I've seen a lot of people do this where I have to take these classes and I have to take them fast and I have to get it done. But, the breadth and the depth of the knowledge is important because everything compounds upon each other. So, one thing, then you're possibly not going to get the next thing. And I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. So did you have to take a W for that first class?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay.
I absolutely took the W, and I tried to talk to them because this is all in my head, right? I'm like, oh my goodness, I'll never get into med school this way. I was like, is there a way I will not get a W for this? They're like, unfortunately, we have to give you a W. And I was pretty distraught. But I decided to make a promise to myself to take it one step at a time. I said, okay, we're not going to forego your whole journey because of this class. Let's just take the class before, and then if we do well, then we continue.
Good. Now, the nursing careers is pretty flexible, with full-time typically being like 3 12-hour shifts, leaving a lot of time to take classes and to fit in extracurriculars. From the time you decided to go back and be pre-med and start this journey to the time where you were getting ready to apply the first time, what was that time difference like? What was that gap there?
So it was about, I started in end of 2014, but really 2015, so about 2 years, because the first time I was applying was 2017, so 2 years.
Okay. And along that journey, how were you managing classes and extracurriculars and working and everything else that you had to do? What was that juggling like?
I have no idea. I don't remember. So I worked night shifts. So I would, which I don't advise people to do. Please, please, if you're taking anything from this podcast, please do not do what I do. Okay. Or did, because I don't even recognize that person. So I worked night shift, and then I went to class during the day, and then I did that for a year, and then I did the extracurriculars as well, because it was hard to fit in, extracurriculars that were maybe like 3 to 5 p.m. in the afternoon, or I did activities for living facility, so that was like from 4 to 7. So I couldn't work 12 hours and, do that. So I would do that on the day I had school, but that was the day I didn't also sleep. So there was a lot of sleepless nights. But then in 2017, I think I was over the age of 25. So I realized I can't do that anymore. So it's true. It's true. There's something that happens when you turn 25. You can't go no sleep to things. So I started going to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then doing the things I needed to do on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, so that I would one day off Sundays to kind of recuperate.
Now,
so that's kind of how
a lot of nurses and other healthcare workers who want to go and become physicians will not think about the other extracurriculars. They think, oh, I'm in healthcare already. I can just take the MCAT, do my classes, and apply. What sort of extracurriculars were you adding on top of all the clinical experience that you were getting?
So, I did extra were things that I was personally interested in. So I used to work at this senior center with older people, and I really, when I was working there as a nurse, I didn't really get to spend as much time doing activities with them and just really figuring out what they like and things like that. So I wanted to do something that I was genuinely interested in, but never really got the time to do. So I did that with them. I did Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout troop leader. I did some student government things while I was still in school. And then I also did research from my cell biology class, which really came as something that was not even planned at all. I was just I was in the hallway at school and I saw my instructor from the last semester and I said, "Hi, do you need any help in your lab?" And she was like, "Sure, send me an email." And before she walked away from me, I had already sent her the email. And she looked at her phone. She's like, "Oh, that was fast." I was like, "Yes, I'm very interested." So yeah, she let me come in her lab, and I was the only kind of, because I wasn't completely undergrad and I wasn't master's, so I was in the middle, and she let me work with her master's and PhD students who taught me so much, and research presentation and posters and things like that came from that experience. But it was just literally just kind of being vulnerable enough to say, "Hey, this is who I am, and I can help. And what do you need for me to do?"
Yeah.
So,
So you have a history of advocating for yourself, advocating for that research position, emailing immediately. And we'll get into advocating for yourself later on in the application cycle. And I remember you sending other emails almost immediately, talking to people. So it's a trend in your
it's a trend.
in your journey. What about shadowing? A lot of nurses and PAs and NPs, they'll talk about, well, do I need to shadow? I work around doctors all the time. Did you get any shadowing experience?
Yes, I got shadowing experience with a physician I knew working with the geriatric population, and a hematology oncologist I also worked with at the hospital. I shadowed them at their clinic, and it was such a different experience. And that's when it goes back to what I said in the beginning of, getting a bird's eye view of what's going on. It was very strange, and I know when nurses and when you guys go shadowing, you'll have the same experience. So, we're going over a case, we're really getting into the depth of it, and then, you know, writing orders. And so the doctor's like, "Okay, so I'm going to write this order." And immediately when the doctor writes the order, I'm trying to get up to do it. I'm like, "Oh, you need blood," instead of really understanding, I'm more of like, okay, why are we getting this blood test, and what is that gonna, help in the outlook of the patient, further. So I really learned how much task oriented, I was with nursing, and it makes a really, really big difference. Even with the patient, you're trying to figure out how everyone is, the doctor will sit there and talk to them and really, spend time getting their full history. And you're just like, okay, well, this is what we have to do. It's a lot of like, we have to do this and this and this. You're kind of planning everyone else's life instead of being able to really appreciate the patient and take in all they have to offer. So, yeah.
You were getting ready to apply in 2017 and ultimately decided not to. What was that thought process like? What happened then?
2017 it was crazy. It was a lot of ill preparedness. I reached out to you in April because I kept pushing my MCAT date. And this is just an announcement to everyone. If you take your AAMC exam and you get a score that is not what you want on the MCAT, do not take the MCAT. It will not change when you're on test day. Okay. It'll get worse.
So my saying around that is, I believe in miracles, but not with the MCAT.
Not with the MCAT. Like, you almost like want to overshoot than undershoot
because nerves will get to you on the real test day.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So there was that. That was the biggest thing. And of course, you and I worked on you helped me work on my application, which was, I remember you saying my personal statement was sterile when you read it. And slowly but surely, I started getting your voice in my head to really get my story, because I think that was the problem. I was so focused on trying to, say how, great of a doctor I would be because of my experience, that I forgot who I was as a person.
Yep.
So, so that was, the MCAT was a big thing in 2017, and me not being as prepared as I should have been and not taking it early. You really don't want to hit the submit button before you have your MCAT score back. It's just not wise at all.
When did you get your score back that cycle?
I got my score back June the I don't know, 17th or something.
Okay. So
No,
mid June.
July. No, I took it June 17th and I got it like back July 17th. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I forget, did you submit your application already?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. And so you get your score back. It's nowhere near where you want it to be. Right?
No.
And what was that process like for you? Obviously, a little freak out mode, a little I'm not smart enough to do this mode. But technically, did you like go to all the schools and to say, just kidding, LOL, never mind?
Right.
What happened with the application itself?
It wasn't a freak out mode. It was a death. I felt like someone died because it was just really bad. You study for something, you work hard for something, you get your regular, practice scores back, and I had scored like 16 points less than my actual practice score. So I was just like, okay, something is happening. This is horrible. And so I emailed the schools and I was like, I'm gonna retake it in September. So that was July. So I had, 2 months. I was like, I'm gonna retake it, please. I felt like I was wasting their time, by even submitting, because it was so bad. I was like, who cares? Like, they were like, did this kid just wake up and say she's going to take the MCAT today?
A lot of students do that.
But yeah, so that's how I went about that. And then, through that time, that process, I learned those 2 months where I was trying to restudy. I learned how important it is to just take a second and heal. And I remember my best friend saying this. She was like, she had taken her MCAT twice as well. And she said, you really need some time to just heal. You need some time to breathe and really gather yourself, because doing this, studying again, will not be easy. The first time, it's really nice, sunshine and daisies. I hope no one has to take the MCAT again or restudy for it or anything. But no, really, like the first time, it's really nice. And then the second time, you have to pick up your feelings from, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, to you actually have a score that proves that you couldn't do it. And then gather the strength to do it again. You got to fight all that. And so that's a lot harder than, the first time, like, it's okay, I can do this. So it took me a lot longer, and I ultimately decided not to take it in September. And I remember calling you and telling you that. And it, I felt like it was a loss and everything, but looking back on it, it was the best decision I could have made, because I wasn't mentally just ready to go through that again.
Yeah. And what's worse than one bad score is two bad scores.
Two bad scores.
Yeah. So all you're doing is proving to the admissions committees that, look, I not only failed once, I didn't learn from my mistakes, and I did it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you took some time off. Did you try to improve anything in your application during that time off, or were you strictly focused on just continuing everything you were doing and then also improving the MCAT?
Yeah, I found a lot of solace just working with patients and going back and doing the activities that I was doing before, and adding one more thing. I started working with some like cardiac devices, and so spending time with some kids in Girl Scouts, actually, they inspired me the most to keep going and keep doing what I was doing, because when they went up a reading level, they were, so excited, and seeing them from the beginning, where they could, hardly do it, to the end where they're reading like full books, and they're in the first grade, and they're like, I did it, Miss Janet, I did it. And they were so excited. And I was like, okay, if they can do this, then I can continue to do this, because I'm an example for them. So I can't really quit. And that, working with them and working with the patients, that's what really motivated me to go back and study again, and like take that in. So your activities really helps you with your why.
Yep.
Because books and studying and whatever can only take you so far, but it's those real people, it's those real tangible things that remind you, like, wow, I really, really want to do this because of who motivates me.
Yeah. I talk about it all the time. I think one of the biggest mistakes that students make is they go, full on into MCAT mode and they stop doing everything else. And then they start to get burnt out. They forget their why because they're not putting themselves around patients and other people. So I'm glad you figured that out. So you retook the test. You improved 8 points.
Yes.
You were 1 point shy of 500.
No.
1 point shy of 500. What was that? You getting back that score the second time you took it?
Yeah.
In the middle of preparing again for the application, what went through your mind then?
It was a heartbreak, but then I only allowed myself like 3 seconds of that. And I was like, okay, you're going to take this, you're going to deal with this, and we're going to move forward because we cannot live in MCAT land forever. So we at least have to, and I say we, which is like me and Ryan. We at least have to try with the score because I was at the point where like my finances were kind of like all over the place because, I was working, but there were some things that happened. So there was just extra things that needed to be taken care of. And I was in a place where I was like, I cannot spend any more time studying. And I remember, telling you this, and my school pre-med advisor, who is actually great. She actually said the same thing. She was like, oh man, if it was just one more point. And I was like, yeah, I know.
if only.
But I know I'm probably going to go through a lot of digital shredders, but I was like, I will go bankrupt. I can't do this. Like, I know I have to, get a score, but I have to survive as a person. Like, I can't, so that was.
So you click submit on the application. We polish up the application, tell the best story possible of your journey. When did you submit your application?
I submitted it June 16th.
Okay, so relatively early. And you submitted to both MD and DO.
Yes.
And it was the beginning of October. We had a phone call. And it was crickets up to that point. Hadn't heard anything. No interview invites. No. Maybe some rejections, but nothing to that point. And that was, I think, a Tuesday that we talked. And I said, there's a conference happening this Saturday. If you can, come out to the UC Davis conference and meet some people and advocate for yourself. And so I don't know how you did it, but you were there. You were there Saturday. Talk about what that was like, being in the middle of the application season, knowing your scores, and your GPA was good, right? It was like 3.6-ish, something like that, if I can talk. And so you had a great GPA. The MCAT score, though, was holding you back. Obviously, great clinical experience coming from being a nurse. What was that process like for you to go around to the different schools and say, hello, I'm Janet. I'm in the middle of applications. I applied to your school. Please, please, please look at my application.
So it was, it was scary at first because I had also done the conference with you in like June the year before that. And so I was like, okay, apparently I'm an extrovert, but
yes.
I think when it comes to, just talking about myself and things like that, I'm really not, it takes a lot more for me to do that. And I didn't know that. So when I got out there, I knew that was going to be something that I had to overcome. It's okay to talk to people. It's okay to say, hey, how are you? But when you're saying,
when you
hey,
need something,
how are you? Yeah. When, I guess like part of it's probably just some like pride thing. I'm not sure. But, just being like, hey, how are you? Name is Janet. I applied. Look me up. So after I talked to more and more schools, it got easier. But I can say those conferences are pivotal, and the pre-med advisors are literally, they're taking your AMCAS ID number. They're taking it seriously. It's not like just, oh, hey, whatever. They love when you said, oh, I've applied to your school. I came out. I really, wanted to talk to you about it, about my application and things like that. it's super helpful. Don't not walk up to a table because you feel, oh, I'm not good enough or anything like that, because it can really, really surprise you what might come
Did
from
you
those.
did you lead the conversation at all with, yeah, I got a 499? Or did you let them ask you questions? How did that come up, if at all?
So, I started, with, hey, I applied this cycle and things like that. And then some of them would ask me, what was your MCAT? And then if they seem overly excited to pull my application, I'd be like, so just so you know, got a 499. Okay. Is that a problem? Because I didn't want us to waste our time and start having these, fond conversations and empty promises. And then I would leave there feeling elated, and then they would pull my application and be like, oh no, never. Not in this lifetime. So yeah, it just depends on how it was going.
And I personally introduced you to a friend of mine who's a dean of admissions at a DO school. Mm-hmm. And we talked, and she loved you, and she heard your MCAT score, and she said, yeah, I probably, she's like, I'm not going to be able to invite you for an interview. You have to be a 500. And when she said that, it kind of hurt a little bit. It's like, we try to promote this holistic look at an applicant, and she's like, nope, 500. No. And we know that, right? We know that they have cutoffs and stuff like that, but it hurts even more when you're like right in front of them, and it's like, look, I'm a normal person. I have great GPA, I have great experiences, and they're still like, it's a hard cutoff. So that conference didn't really bear fruit for you, but you took it upon yourself to go to another conference and get in front of more people. Mm-hmm. What was that like? Because the second conference that you went to actually landed you a couple interviews. So what do you think was different that second time around?
So it's really knowing what the aim for the conference you need to go to. So the second conference was a minority conference. So it was helpful because although the UC Davis one had it had a lot of diversity and inclusion, the medical school personnel at the AAMC minority conference were actually, that's what they were there to do. Mm-hmm. They were seeking out minorities. So it was easier because at least you didn't have to be like, well, I'm a minority. It's like, that's what they were there for. And I'd actually gone to the one school, they had an open house the day before, and seen the dean of admissions, and said, she was in a rush to leave. And I was like, oh, don't worry, I'll see you tomorrow. And I ended up, seeing her, and she was like, oh, wow, you came. I was like, yes, I told you I would see you. And so by that point, I'm really glad I went to the UC Davis conference, because you were there. And so you kind of helped me to know, like, okay, you have to get yourself out there. But there was someone where I felt like that had my back, there. So when I went to the AMC Minority Conference, my friend works. She goes to school at UT Health Sciences, MD, PhD. So she actually happened to be there at like one of their booths. So it was great because that was just another person that was supportive and had my back. So I was able to walk around to all the schools, and there were some schools I did not go to, and the school I'm actually gonna matriculate into, I skipped that school 5 times walking around the tables because I had an aim. I was like, I got to go to this school and that school and that school and that school, and get out there and tell them about myself. And I skipped it, and then I was like, just go over there. And
did you skip it because you didn't think you had a chance? Because the people looked intimidating? Why did you skip it?
Yeah, so I did. I skipped it because they looked intimidating. And I'd actually spoken to one of another applicant that was applying, and she had said that, oh, that is my sorority sister that was over there. Mm-hmm. And then she was like, well, we're going to dinner later. So I felt like everything was so like she had it in with all those people, and I was just like some outsider, and I was just like, okay, I'm just not gonna do that. Another mistake, that I made with that. So, but I said, this is not about a sorority or anything like that. This is about my story, and I applied to the school, and I need to go over there, and I need to, I need to introduce myself, and I did, and the director of admissions was actually very much like myself and very intimidating. And she was like, why should we interview you? And, it was kind of like an on the spot, interview. And, I told them, and she said, okay, what's your MCAT? And I said, 499. And I kind of did this thing where I was like, oh, I could have done better. And she's like, no, 499, you need to own it. And I was like, okay. So, that was, that was interesting because I was like, okay, that was scary, but she gave me more confidence, like own your story.
Mm-hmm.
This is who you are. So, yeah.
Did you, when you were leaving that conference, did you think anything was going to come of those interactions?
Yeah, yes, I got a lot of, just from other schools as well. I got a lot of like just positive feedback and, some people that were going to connect me with some other people to, if I had to end up, even DO schools. I went to a specific DO school that rejected me, and the dean there was like, okay, well, we have a cutoff, but I actually know someone else that at this other school that might be able to possibly help you. So I felt encouraged because, it's like you were not alone, but at the same time, it's all an empty promise until you get an interview invite.
Yeah.
So
how soon did that first interview invite come?
So I left the conference on Saturday, and the interview invite came on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah.
From somebody that you talked to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got 2 interview invites at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And went on 2 interviews, and you got 2 acceptances.
Yes.
What do you think made the difference for you getting those acceptances?
I think just the whole entire, journey. I think by the time I got to the interview, I thought I would be more, scared than I actually was. It's like, this is the biggest interview of my life. This is medical school, and I didn't feel that way. I was like, this is who I am. I need to go and meet these people and tell them about myself and also get to know them along the way. It's not just a one-way thing where you're saying things and they're grilling you and like you're just gonna, when they ask you, do you have any questions? You just sit there like, no, I'm fine. It's like you're gonna go to the school. You're gonna be married to the school for 4 years. You also need to, genuinely get to know them, So that was my approach to both interviews, and they were very relaxed, and it was really, it was a good thing because I think a lot of people go to interviews and they're a lot more, I don't know, I guess more stressful, and mine were not like that at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How did you decide between the 2 acceptances?
I decided on, and this will be funny, but I literally got warm and fuzzies feelings from the school that I'm ultimately going to. And that was the overall experience. I think in general in life, you have these high and low experiences. So you go to Disney World and you're like, oh, wow, great time. But overall, there was only maybe like 20 minutes you had fun. And the rest of the time you were standing in line, you were sweating, you were doing all these things. So I tried to, when I got home after the interview, I tried to rate the interview over the whole entire experience. And so with the one school, I really loved the school, but I realized it was from 2 interactions I had and the conversations that I had with these specific people. And, I liked the overall feel, but it was just, that's what really drove it home for me. And I was like, I can't go to a school because of interactions I had with 2 people.
Yeah.
And so with the other school, it was the programs that they had, and the time they have for board prep time, when they take their board scores, global health is really important to me. So the school I'm matriculating in actually has programs for me to be able to go back to Tanzania and do work in global health and, still get credit for that. And just the overall feel of the students, the learning style. I think one of the biggest things from the schools that I've learned from is that all medical schools would teach you the same thing. The difference is how they do it. So what drew me to the school that I'm matriculating in is how they did it, how they're teaching through team-based learning, and not having lectures and doing more case-based studies, because I've gone through enough school to know that, lectures are not the best learning form for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For the student out there struggling with their MCAT, maybe struggling with their GPA, and maybe is in the middle of their application season or knows that they're going to have to advocate for themselves like you advocated for yourself, what words of encouragement would you have for them to go out there and do that?
I would say, don't look to the right, don't look to the left. Just focus on your journey. There is no one else like you. And yes, there are people out there, they're probably smarter, better, brighter, whatever it is that's going on with them. But if you just take the time out to appreciate the things that are going on in your life and focus on those and just keep working hard, that will amount in a greater satisfaction when you get to the end. And it won't be easy and you will have pitfalls, but just remember your why. That's what's going to, keep you going. And there's no such thing as balance. So no, I will not tell you that, you can spend time with your friends and your family and, do all those things. You will have to sacrifice. You will. And, you just have to know the people around you who will, who'll support you through that.
All right. So there you have it. Again, that was Janet showing you what you can do if you just believe in yourself and advocate for yourself. Nobody is going to advocate for you on this journey. You have to advocate for yourself. Now, you don't want to bug and pester the admissions committees over and over and over again. If they're at a conference, they're there to interact with students. They're there to recruit specific types of students. And obviously, she mentioned that at the AAMC Minority Student Fair, they're there looking for minority students. It's a fair to help minority students get into medicine. And so she showed up and she got a couple interviews and she got those acceptances. So if you are struggling on your journey, think about attending a conference that maybe you can fly to or maybe is local. Stay in contact with as many schools as possible as you're going through this journey and have them advocate for you if you can meet the right people. I hope this one was helpful for you. I know that Janet had an amazing journey, and I know she'll inspire a lot of you out there to hopefully do what she did. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the Pre-Med Years.